He's literally too pathetic to hire a lawyer, my wife mocked in court. I represented myself, calm and confident, until I revealed I'd been a licensed attorney for 10 years. Her mocking turned into panic. Hey, Reddit, long-time lurker here. Never thought I'd be posting, but let's just say my wife thought she was about to walk all over me in divorce court with her new upgrade and a flashy lawyer. She had no idea who she was actually up against. Buckle up. When I, 37 male, first met Sydney, 35 female, she wasn't some cartoon villain like I know she's about to sound later. Back then, she came across like the type of girl who had her life figured out. Smart, good job in marketing, carried herself like she belonged in the nicest places in town. I was 26, still grinding through the last stretch of law school at night while working telecom consulting during the day to keep bills paid. To me, she was out of my league. She had that confident energy, the kind that makes you feel like just being in her orbit was a win. She made it clear early on she wasn't into lawyers. I'll never forget her saying, "Lawyers are boring old men who argue about paperwork." And I should have laughed and said, "Yeah, well, guess what I'm in law school for?" Instead, I just nodded and told her about my telecom work. It felt easier, and honestly, the consulting business was going well enough that I wasn't lying. I just didn't mention the whole law school thing. When I passed the bar later, I never said a word. To Sydney, I was just the boring telecom guy, but I kept my license active anyway. Boring weekend classes, continuing education credits, no glory, but I stayed current. I never thought it would matter. The first few years were decent. We moved into a modest apartment, then later a townhouse. Sydney worked hard enough at first. She'd tell her coworkers how proud she was of me, bragged about me landing new contracts. I'll give her that. She knew how to make me feel like the guy. There were signs, little things, but at the time they looked like quirks more than issues. Like she wanted to always look put together, which meant new clothes, hair appointments, all that. I told myself she just has high standards, and she'd introduce me to people as her husband who runs a telecom firm. The way she said it made me feel like more than I was. But as time went on, the scales tilted. My days started stretching into 60, 70 hours a week. More clients, more responsibility, more pressure. Sydney's workdays, on the other hand, got shorter. Marketing turned into flexible hours and remote projects that seemed to involve long lunches with her friends. She wasn't lazy. She just got hooked on a lifestyle where appearances mattered more than effort. That's when she started throwing in those little digs. Nothing savage at first, just jabs like, "You're so predictable," or "You never take risks." I brushed them off. I mean, I was providing. We had a good house, vacations, dinners out. If being predictable meant keeping the lights on, then fine. Still, I could feel the shift. She liked telling people about my business success, but at home she started acting like it wasn't enough. She wanted bigger trips, flashier cars, designer furniture. "Why should we settle when we can have the best?" she'd say. And yeah, I worked harder to give her those things, thinking that was what marriage was supposed to be. There were some financial fights, nothing nuclear. She asked for emergency access to my business account once. I hesitated, but she hit me with, "Don't you trust me?" And when you're married, that guilt line is tough to fight. So I gave her a card tied to the account. At first, it was harmless. A couple grocery charges, a random Uber. Then it grew. Boutique purchases, spa packages, once a rooftop dinner for her and a friend labeled as a business meeting. I wasn't blind, but I told myself it wasn't worth the battle every single time. The crazy part is she still bragged about me nonstop. To her friends, to her parents, to random people at parties. Caleb's business is booming. He's building an empire. She loved flexing the image, posting the vacations, tagging the fancy restaurants. But when we were alone, she'd hit me with, "You're boring," or "You don't understand ambition like I do." It was whiplash. I was her trophy and her punching bag, depending on the day. Through it all, I kept up with my law license in secret. It was like this little thing just for me. Every year I'd knock out my credits, read up on legal changes, mostly family law since that was easy to keep track of. Sydney never noticed, never asked, never cared. She thought I was some nerd on my computer dealing with routers or client invoices. I didn't correct her. Why would I? It wasn't like it mattered, at least not then. Looking back, I can see how the entitlement grew over time. It didn't explode all at once, it crept in. One extra shopping spree, one more, "We need a better car," one more jab at how predictable I was. And me? I just kept my head down, figuring if I worked hard enough, she'd eventually appreciate it. That's the trap, though. You start thinking effort fixes character. Spoiler, it doesn't. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't clueless either. I knew something was off in the way she valued me, proud of me in public, dismissive in private. I just didn't know how far it went. Not yet. The affair with Logan hadn't hit my radar at this point, but if I'd looked closer at her Instagram stories or the emergency withdrawals, maybe I would have noticed sooner. At the time, though, I chalked it up to stress, to the grind, to the idea that all marriages have phases. I thought I could carry it a little longer, keep things balanced, and she'd come around. What I didn't realize was that while I was keeping the whole house upright, Sydney was already rehearsing her exit. 2. And she wasn't subtle about it either. I just hadn't been paying attention. That emergency access she had to my business account turned into a neat little funnel that was bleeding out $3,000 a month. At first, I thought maybe it was some payment I set up and forgot about. A retainer, a subscription, whatever. Then I checked the details. Every month, the same withdrawal, same note. Training. Only it wasn't my gym. Wasn't even a gym. It was payments tied to Logan, the guy I vaguely knew as her friend who was building a brand. Logan was a fitness influencer. Translation: he took selfies in the gym, begged companies for promo codes, and made about as much money as a high school kid mowing lawns. His entire life was protein powder, ring lights, and hashtags. Sydney thought he was some genius entrepreneur. I thought he was the guy who'd be out of breath carrying groceries up the stairs. I dug deeper, found more charges that lined up perfectly with Logan's posts. New sneakers, camera gear, supplements, all purchased with my money. I'm sitting there scrolling through his Instagram like, that's interesting. Those are the same dumb shoes that got billed to my account last week. So I put the pieces together. Sydney wasn't just helping a friend. She was financing Logan's influencer career. And let's be honest, nobody pays $3,000 a month to train, unless the training involves a hotel room and my wife. I didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't even confront her right away. I played it cool. That's what throws people like Sydney off, when you don't give them the drama they're expecting. She wanted a meltdown. I gave her silence. A couple days later, I finally said something. She was in the kitchen scrolling her phone, laughing at something Logan posted. I slid the business account statement across the counter. $3,000 a month for training? What's he teaching you, Sid? Advanced squats? She froze, then smirked, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Oh, so you finally noticed. Took you long enough. Logan's a real man, Caleb. He actually has ambition. He's not stuck fixing phone lines or whatever it is you do. I just stared at her. Deadpan. Ambition? The guy made $11,000 last year. I make that in a week if a client sneezes wrong. His brand is lifting dumbbells in front of mirrors. My brand pays for this house? She rolled her eyes, tried to pivot. You're boring. Predictable. Logan knows how to live. You just work and think that makes you special. I grinned. Yeah, you're right. Nothing says living like mooching off your girl's husband. He must feel real accomplished cashing checks with my signature on them. That got under her skin. She snapped, You think you're clever? You think you can handle a divorce without me destroying you? I'm taking you for everything. Logan and I already talked about buying this house when it forecloses. That's when I laughed. Not a nervous laugh, but the kind that comes out when someone thinks they're about to deliver the knockout punch, and you know you've already won the fight. Good luck with that, I said, because if you think I'm rolling over, you don't know me at all. File the papers, Sid. Let's see what happens. She wanted me to beg, to panic, to throw out a desperate deal. Instead, I walked away. Next morning, Sydney filed for divorce. Papers hit my doorstep before lunch. And while Sydney was still bragging to Logan about how she'd bleed me dry, I was at home organizing binders like I was about to teach a seminar. See, this is where being boring pays off. I had records, years of statements, receipts, screenshots. I labeled everything. Exhibit A through K. Business withdrawals, her luxury charges, the Instagram posts where she bragged about trading up. My personal favorite? A caption she posted, Can't wait to take him for everything. Victory vacation with my real man soon. She put that online like it was motivational. I printed it on glossy paper just so she'd see it look official in a courtroom binder. And here's the part that really made me smile. While Sydney was telling everyone I'd be crushed without her, that I couldn't afford a lawyer, that I'd be crawling by the time she was done, I was quietly sharpening the biggest weapon she didn't know I had, that law license I'd been keeping alive for 10 years. I didn't need a lawyer. I was the lawyer. She thought she was going to outsmart me, play me, drain me. What she didn't realize was that the whole time she was rehearsing her exit, I'd been building the perfect stage for her to trip over. And she was about to find out that the boring, predictable telecom guy wasn't just boring. He was lethal when pushed. 3. When the divorce papers landed in her hands, Sydney did what I expected. She went nuclear. She strutted around like she'd already won, bragging to her friends that she had hired the best. Enter Leonard Bennett. You've probably seen his face if you've ever driven on a highway. Big white smile on a billboard, arms crossed, slogan underneath, "We crush them before they crush you." The kind of guy who takes selfies with his own posters. Sydney loved telling me she had Bennett on her side. She even called me after signing with him, smug as ever. Leonard says you're an idiot for not hiring anyone. He's going to bury you in motions and bleed you dry. Maybe Logan and I will get a deal on your house when it goes to auction. I stayed quiet for a moment and then just said, "Cool. Anyway, where's my Dr. Pepper?" She hung up. Damn. I was craving Dr. Pepper that night. Anyways, the day of the first hearing, I showed up in my best suit. Nothing flashy. Plain navy, pressed, polished shoes. Sydney came in like she was walking a runway. Designer dress, heels, hair done within an inch of its life. And yes, she brought Logan, sitting in the hallway wearing sunglasses indoors like a discount celebrity. I swear if he'd had a protein shake in his hand, it would have completed the look. Bennett spotted me and smirked like a man who'd already cashed the check. He leaned in, all fake friendly. Listen, it's not too late to get real representation. I know some budget guys who might take pity on you, payment plans, and all that. Before I could answer, Sydney chimed in loud enough for everyone around to hear. He's literally too pathetic to hire a lawyer. That's why he's playing pretend in court. I've been supporting this loser for years. He fixes phones for a living. I just looked at her, dead calm. That's cute, Sid. We'll see how supportive you feel in about 20 minutes. Inside, Judge Martinez presided, an older woman with a reputation for not suffering fools. Bennett went first, standing tall like he was auditioning for a legal drama. Your Honor, my client is seeking temporary spousal support of $8,000 monthly, exclusive use of the marital home, and payment of all her legal fees. The respondent is appearing pro se, which speaks to his financial limitations. Sydney sat back like she'd already won. Logan smiled like an idiot. The judge turned to me. Mr. Thompson, are you representing yourself? I am, Your Honor. Sydney actually snorted. Bennett smirked. Very well, the judge said. Do you have any objections to the petitioner's requests? I stood. I do, Your Honor. May I approach? Bennett rolled his eyes. Perhaps we should advise Mr. Thompson of proper procedure? I'm familiar, I cut in, sliding my binder forward. I'd like to submit Exhibits A through K for the court's consideration. The look on Bennett's face was priceless. He wasn't expecting properly formatted exhibits with tabs, summaries, and citations. I laid them out like I'd been doing this for years. Because technically, I had. Exhibit A, I said, documents withdrawals of $3,000 monthly from my business account over the last 18 months. Exhibit B through D show petitioner's personal expenses averaging $12,000 a month, none of which contributed to household needs. Exhibit E is a post from her social media account last week, where she stated, and I quote, "Can't wait to take him for everything he's worth. Already planning my victory vacation with my real man." Sydney went pale. Bennett fumbled with his papers. Logan looked like he'd swallowed his protein powder wrong. Judge Martinez raised her eyebrows. Mr. Bennett, were you aware your client posted about her intentions publicly? Bennett stammered, That was taken out of context. The context seems pretty clear, the judge replied. Mr. Thompson, continue. I nodded. Regarding spousal support, State Code Section 14-10-114, subsection 3 states that marital misconduct, particularly economic fault, can be considered in support determinations. The $54,000 taken from my business without authorization qualifies as economic misconduct. Additionally, Exhibit K is the retainer agreement between petitioner and Mr. Bennett for $50,000, paid from an account containing marital funds 2 days before filing. That constitutes dissipation of assets, which under Hughes versus Hughes should be credited against petitioner's share. Bennett's face turned red. How did you... Discovery, I said mildly. Even the judge had to fight a smile. By the time I finished, it was clear this wasn't going the way Sydney had scripted in her head. She leaned over to whisper furiously to Bennett, who stood up and tried to regain control. Your Honor, we request a continuance to review these unexpectedly professional submissions. Denied, Judge Martinez said flatly. Mr. Thompson, anything else? Yes, Your Honor, I said. I request denial of all temporary support and reimbursement of the $54,000 from my business account within 30 days. Judge Martinez flipped through the binder, then looked up. Petitioner's requests are denied. Petitioner is ordered to return $54,000 within 30 days. We'll revisit permanent orders at trial. Mr. Bennett, prepare your client for what lies ahead. Mr. Thompson seems quite capable of protecting his interests. Sydney slammed her hands on the table. This is bullshit. He's not a lawyer. He doesn't know what he's doing. He just fixes phones. Mrs. Thompson, the judge warned, control yourself. We walked out. Sydney was red-faced. Bennett looked like he'd bitten a lemon, and Logan was trying to console her like a guy whose only job was to look concerned. Bennett cornered me. Who's helping you? No paralegal could prepare those documents. I smiled. See you at trial, counselor. Sydney shouted after me. You won't get away with this. I didn't even turn around. Already did. 4. That line stuck with me the whole drive home. Sydney and Bennett thought they could steamroll me, and I'd just proved otherwise. But that was only round 1. Discovery was coming, and that's where Bennett thought he'd bury me. The next few weeks were like trench warfare. Bennett filed everything he could think of. Requests for documents, interrogatories, demands for production, deposition schedules at impossible times. It was like he hit copy-paste on every intimidation tactic in the book. I'm sure he expected me to fold, miss deadlines, or drown in paperwork. Instead, I hit back within 24 hours every single time. Everything formatted properly, citations in place, exhibits neatly labeled. When he tried to trip me up with a motion full of procedural jargon, I filed a response quoting case law word for word. He must have realized something was off, because he even went as far as filing a bar complaint claiming I was practicing law without a license by representing myself too competently. That one actually made me laugh. The state bar's reply shut it down immediately. Pro se litigants are entitled to represent themselves to any degree of competence they are capable of. Translation: being better prepared than your overpriced attorney isn't a crime. Then came depositions. Bennett insisted on handling Sydney's himself. Big mistake. Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. We sat in a bland conference room with the court reporter clicking away. Sydney walked in like she owned the place, designer bag swinging, Logan tagging along like her emotional support influencer. She sat across from me, smirk plastered on her face. Bennett started softballs, work history, lifestyle questions. Then I pulled out the exhibit folder. Mrs. Thompson, I said, flipping a page, can you explain this transfer for $3,000, recurring monthly, marked as training? She crossed her arms. That's for Logan's coaching. He's been helping me with fitness for a couple months. Couple months? I slid another paper across. Because this withdrawal pattern goes back 18 months. And here are texts from 3 years ago where you tell him, quote, just a little longer until I can take Caleb for everything. Care to explain the math? Her smile cracked. That's private. Bennett jumped in. Objection, relevance. I didn't even flinch. Goes directly to marital misconduct and length of the affair. Very relevant to asset division under state law. The court reporter actually smirked. Sydney shifted uncomfortably, then snapped, fine, 3 years. So what? You're boring, Caleb. You have no ambition. Logan actually does something with his life. I leaned back. Yeah, if posting gym selfies and making 11 grand a year counts as ambition. I slid Logan's subpoenaed tax return across the table. Because that's his entire income from last year. $11,000. Not exactly mogul material. Logan muttered something about building a brand. I just shook my head. That should have been bad enough, but Sydney kept digging her own hole. She got cocky, started ranting about how I didn't understand success, how Logan was going to be huge, how she'd been planning this divorce for years. Then she let it slip. I maxed out those credit cards before filing because he'd have to pay half anyway. Bennett's face went white. He tried to shut her up, but it was too late. The reporter had it all down. She'd just admitted intentional financial sabotage on the record. I didn't say a word, just wrote exhibit in my notes and underlined it twice. And then came the gift I didn't expect, Marie. She used to be one of Sydney's closest friends until Sydney scammed her in some scheme and stiffed her on money. Bitter ex-friends make great allies. Out of the blue, Marie emailed me a video file. Turns out Sydney had posted a private Instagram story during a wine night with her friends, bragging about her master plan. Marie screen recorded it before they fell out and decided now was the time to share. On the video, Sydney's glass in hand, slurring just enough to be smug. Caleb's too stupid to ever fight back. 3 more years, and I'll take half his business, the house, everything. Logan and I already picked out which car we're buying with settlement money. I played it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Then I tagged it as Exhibit M and added Marie to my witness list. Bennett, of course, tried to get it excluded, claimed it was inadmissible hearsay, claimed the video was altered, tried every trick. The judge wasn't impressed. Motion denied. Marie was locked in as a witness. Sydney didn't take it well. She ranted in the hallway after one hearing, pointing at me like she was the victim. "You're pathetic, Caleb. Nobody cares about your binders and exhibits. Leonard's going to crush you at trial." I smiled, calm as ever. "You're doing a great job crushing yourself, Sid. I'm just here to collect the paperwork." By the time discovery ended, I had everything I needed. 3 years of text messages showing intent, financial records of her draining my business, a private video confession, and her own deposition admitting she maxed cards deliberately. Bennett had noise. I had receipts. Sydney thought she was outsmarting me every time she opened her mouth. What she didn't realize was that every word was another nail in her own coffin. Trial was still ahead, and I hadn't even played my best card yet. 5. That must have scared Bennett, because a week later he called me, trying his best reasonable man voice. "Caleb, let's avoid a circus. Sydney is prepared to settle. She keeps the house. You pay her $3,000 monthly for 2 years, and we split the rest 50-50. Nobody needs to get hurt here." I didn't even pretend to think about it. "So, just to confirm, you want me to give her the house, fund Logan's pre-workout powder, and reward her for stealing from my business?" Hard pass. There was a pause. Then Bennett leaned on the classic bluff. "If this goes to trial, things could get ugly. Sydney is ready to bring up very personal matters, intimate details, your inadequacies." I laughed. "That's your angle? She cheats for 3 years, drains my account, and your nuke is that I work too much? Go ahead, Leonard. Print it on an exhibit tab. The judge will love it." Click. Conversation over. With settlement off the table, I doubled down on prep. My office looked like a command center. 3 binders, one for me, one for the court, one spare. Tabs color-coded. Exhibits A through M lined up with summaries. Every piece of evidence had a sticky note pointing to the exact statute or case law it supported. I wasn't just preparing to defend. I was building a narrative. Bank withdrawals, credit card splurges, Logan's laughable tax returns, Sydney's public posts bragging about taking me for everything, and the private video from Marie. Each item was a domino, and all I had to do at trial was push the first one. I also locked in the metadata evidence. Sydney had spent years documenting her fabulous life online. Photos, stories, check-ins. What she didn't realize was that every one of those came with GPS coordinates and timestamps. While I was grinding on client projects, she was uploading selfies from resorts with Logan tagged as her bestie. The metadata showed she wasn't on girls' trips like she told people. She was with him. That timeline destroyed her claim that the affair was short-term. We'd already stipulated authenticity in pre-trial, so the judge treated the GPS printouts as rock solid. I built charts, printed maps, highlighted dates. Even if Bennett tried to spin it, the tech didn't lie. Sydney, of course, couldn't help herself. Days before trial, she posted a selfie. Her in designer sunglasses, Logan's arm draped in the corner of the frame. Caption: "Can't wait to watch my ex try to play lawyer. Gonna be hilarious. #upgrade. I screenshotted it instantly. Labeled it Exhibit N. Marie, the former friend Sydney burned, was locked into. I met her at a coffee shop to prep her testimony. She slid me her phone, scrolling through old messages from Sydney bragging about stringing Caleb along until the big payout. Marie looked nervous, but she wanted payback. "She ruined me," she said. "If this helps you bury her, I'm in," I reassured her. "You'll just answer the questions." The video speaks for itself. The week before trial, Bennett tried one last trick. He filed a motion claiming Marie's video was inadmissible, that metadata wasn't reliable, and that my exhibits were overly prejudicial. We argued in front of the judge. "Mr. Bennett," Judge Martinez said, looking exhausted, "metadata is admissible, videos are admissible, and nothing here is remotely prejudicial beyond your client's own words." Motion denied. Sydney muttered something under her breath, loud enough that the bailiff raised an eyebrow. The night before trial, I went through everything one last time. Suit pressed, shoes shined, papers stacked in my briefcase. Sydney thought I was walking into court as some desperate ex-husband flailing to save himself. She was about to see the opposite, because while she had spent months bragging online, leaking arrogance like it was perfume, I'd spent months building a case that cut her story to ribbons. And tomorrow, I'd finally get to drop the card I'd been holding in my back pocket for a decade. 6. When I walked into the courthouse that morning, the place was buzzing. Word must have spread because the gallery was packed with people. Clerks, attorneys with no cases that day, even a couple randoms probably there just to watch the circus. Everyone wanted to see the telecom guy, representing himself, go toe-to-toe with Leonard Bennett. Sydney showed up in a brand new dress. $3,000 I knew she'd slapped on a credit card before it got cut off. She walked in like it was a red carpet event, Logan trailing behind in his usual sunglasses, trying to look like backup muscle, but mostly looking like lost baggage. Bennett strutted in, giving the juryless courtroom his best TV lawyer swagger. "Your Honor, we're ready," he announced. Judge Martinez nodded. "Proceed." Bennett opened with a dramatic speech about how Sydney was a devoted wife who suffered through years of neglect from a workaholic husband. He painted Logan as just a friend who supported her emotionally. Sydney dabbed at fake tears. Logan sat up straighter, like maybe he thought someone was filming. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. "Your Honor, this marriage didn't end because of neglect. It ended because of greed. The petitioner conducted a 3-year affair, drained $54,000 from my business account, and by her own public statements, stayed married to me for the sole purpose of taking everything she could." Then I started laying down the dominoes. Exhibit A, bank withdrawals, $3,000 monthly to Logan, disguised as training. Exhibits B through D, credit card records showing $12,000 a month in personal shopping sprees. Exhibit E, Sydney's own Instagram post bragging about her victory vacation with my real man. Sydney shifted in her chair. Logan kept adjusting his sunglasses like they were going to shield him from evidence. Bennett objected constantly. Hearsay. Irrelevant. Speculation. Each time I answered calmly, citing rules of evidence like I was reciting a grocery list. Judge Martinez overruled him so often she stopped even looking at him. Then came Marie. I called her up as a witness. She testified how Sydney had bragged for years about planning to take me for everything, then confirmed the video's authenticity. We played it for the courtroom. Sydney on camera, drunk, laughing. "The idiot thinks I love him. 3 more years and I'll have half his business, the house, everything." Logan and I already picked out the car we're buying with settlement money. The room went silent. People in the gallery glanced at each other like they couldn't believe she'd handed me the case herself. Sydney hissed, "That's out of context." I didn't even look at her. "The context is your own words, Sid. Cross-exam time." I kept it tight. "Mrs. Thompson, you've said repeatedly that I'm too stupid to handle this divorce, correct?" She smirked, thinking she had me. "You're not a lawyer, Caleb. You fix phones for a living. This is you playing dress-up." "Interesting," I said. "So you think legal knowledge is important here?" "Obviously," she snapped. "That's why I hired Leonard. You're embarrassing yourself pretending you can do this." I nodded. "Good to know." Then I turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit Z for impeachment purposes." Bennett jumped to his feet. "Objection! This wasn't on the exhibit list." "It's impeachment evidence, Your Honor," I countered. "Goes directly to credibility of the witness." Judge Martinez leaned forward. "I'll allow it." "Bailiff?" The bailiff handed the document to the judge. She read it, eyebrows rising. "Mrs. Thompson," I said, "please read the highlighted portion." She looked confused, then pale. "Active license to practice law in the state of—" "Wait, what?" "Please continue," I pressed. Her voice shrank. "Issued to Caleb Thompson, in good standing, 10 years ago." The courtroom erupted. Whispers, gasps, even a laugh or two from the gallery. Bennett nearly tripped over his own chair. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. He's been practicing law without disclosure." I kept my voice steady. "No, counselor. I've been representing myself, which any citizen can do. I've never taken a client, never practiced for money. I simply maintained my license while running my business. There's no law against being prepared." The judge was clearly fighting a smile. "Mr. Thompson is correct. There is no requirement to disclose professional background, unless specifically asked." "Continue." Sydney exploded. "You lied to me." Our whole marriage was a lie. I finally looked at her. "No, Sid. I never lied. I just never told you. You assumed boring meant weak. That was your mistake." Bennett tried to recover, sputtering through closing remarks. But it was hopeless. The judge had seen enough. Sydney's lies, Logan's uselessness, Bennett's flailing. It all collapsed in one morning. As I packed up my exhibits, I glanced at Logan in the gallery. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Sydney sat there, shaking with rage, whispering at Bennett like he could magically undo everything. The trial wasn't over yet, but the knockout punch had landed. And the best part? I hadn't even raised my voice once. 7. When court reconvened the next morning, the energy was different. Yesterday, everyone came to watch the telecom guy embarrass himself. Today, people showed up because they knew there was blood in the water. The gallery was fuller than ever. I caught one lawyer nudging another, whispering, "That's him, the one who roasted Bennett yesterday." Sydney sat at the petitioner's table, still in designer, though it looked more like armor than fashion now. She kept hissing at Bennett, who nodded mechanically, eyes sunken like a man already regretting the retainer fee he accepted. Logan was absent. No sunglasses, no forced smirk. Guess the real man had better things to do than watch his meal ticket sink. Judge Martinez entered, shuffling papers with that no-nonsense energy that meant business. "We are here for final rulings. Both parties will be heard before judgment." Bennett jumped up first, desperation in his voice. "Your Honor, despite yesterday's theatrics, my client has been a loyal wife, emotionally neglected for years by a work-obsessed husband. She seeks a fair division of assets and reasonable support to maintain stability during this difficult transition." Sydney sniffled loudly on cue. Theatrics, indeed. When it was my turn, I stood calmly. "Your Honor, I've already provided extensive evidence. This case isn't about neglect. It's about a 3-year affair, theft of marital funds totaling $54,000, and intentional dissipation of assets. My request is simple: a fair division that accounts for her misconduct. No drama, just facts." Judge Martinez leaned back, silent for a moment. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Then she began. "Based on testimony and exhibits provided, the court finds ample evidence of marital misconduct on the petitioner's part. Divorce is granted on the grounds of adultery." Sydney gasped like someone slapped her. "Regarding asset division," the judge continued, "petitioner is awarded 20% of marital assets. Respondent retains the remainder. Petitioner is ordered to reimburse respondent $54,000 withdrawn from his business account within 30 days. I didn't flinch. Sydney nearly fell out of her chair. "No spousal support will be awarded. Each party is responsible for their own legal fees. The marital home will be sold, proceeds split in accordance with the asset division. Neither party could realistically refinance it alone with the new numbers, so a clean sale made the most sense." Sydney shot to her feet. "This is impossible! He tricked everyone! He's been lying this whole time, pretending he's just some computer guy." Judge Martinez's gavel came down, sharp. "Mrs. Thompson, when I passed the bar later, I told her I'd finished law school, but I left out one small detail. I'd quietly passed the exam and kept my license active. Control yourself. The only proven deception in this courtroom is yours. Mr. Thompson's choice not to practice law professionally does not constitute dishonesty. Your actions, financial misconduct, infidelity, public boasts about draining your spouse, speak for themselves. You gambled. You lost." The silence after that was deafening. Sydney collapsed into her chair, sobbing into her hands. Bennett tried to gather his papers with dignity, but his shaking hands betrayed him. As I packed my exhibits, he muttered under his breath, "Any firm would be lucky to have you. If you ever get tired of telecom, call me." I didn't even look up. "I'm good with routers, thanks." Outside the courthouse, the fallout began immediately. Sydney stormed out, phone already in hand, ranting on a live stream about how the system was against her. I didn't stick around, but later Marie sent me the clip. Sydney screaming into the camera about manipulative ex-husbands, while commenters roasted her with popcorn emojis. The video disappeared within the hour. Probably Bennett's last piece of good advice. Shut up before you dig deeper. Logan? He ghosted her within a week. Unfollowed her, scrubbed her pictures off his feed, and suddenly started tagging a new collab partner in his gym selfies. Guess the real man was only real as long as my money was in play. Sydney moved back into her parents' house. Last I heard, she was trying to spin the divorce as freeing herself from a toxic man who never supported her dreams. Dreams, in this case, being funding a wannabe influencer with my business account. As for Bennett, his shine took a hit. Word spread fast in legal circles about how he got clowned by a pro-SE litigant who ended up revealing a bar license mid-trial. I wouldn't be shocked if some junior associates at his firm kept whispering Exhibit Z'd behind his back. When I got home that night, I didn't feel like celebrating with champagne or anything dramatic. I just went into my office, set the binders on the shelf, and looked at the empty space above my desk. On one side, I hung my law degree. Next to it, my active bar certificate. And right between them, I framed Sydney's smug Instagram post. Can't wait to watch my ex try to play lawyer. #upgrade. Every time I see it, I laugh. Not because of the money I kept, not because of the win, but because she wrote my victory speech for me without realizing it. That's the thing people like Sydney never understand. They think quiet means weak. They think sarcasm means you're not serious. They mistake patience for passivity. But sometimes being boring, predictable, and prepared is the sharpest weapon you can have. Sydney wanted to make me the punchline. Instead, she became the case study. And me? I went back to work the next day, same as always. Telecom during the day, law license in my back pocket. Still boring, still predictable, just not in the way she ever expected.